From 1878 to 1968, there were 71 lake captains that called Bayview, Wisconsin, on the shore of Lake Michigan, their home. While they lived here, they captained 195 different ships, from tugboats to schooners to steamships, in voyages that took them to every one of the Great Lakes. Join us now for another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we explore not only these captains, but also their ships, their homes, their families, and their lifetime of sailing adventures on the Great Lakes.
Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, where we talk about the 71 different lake captains that once lived in Bayview, Wisconsin from 1878 to 1968 in the age of sail and steam. This episode, like all the others, is sponsored by the Historic Bayview Lake Captains Society. Now, this episode is not going to be talking about a captain per se, but it's going to be the start of several that I'm going to intersperse between various captains episodes here as we go along. This will be the first of them. And to put it as succinctly as I can, it's basically the demographics analysis and research to put that analysis together of all of Bayview's lake captains. Demographics broken down by nationality, types of ships captains, some of them captained the same ship, took turns, all sorts of those kinds of things. Where they lived, what streets they lived on, how many lived on that street, since the majority were immigrants, how did that break down by captain? All of those things I'm going to be producing an episode about, again, interspersed with all the others. And today's is the first, as I mentioned. This one is going to focus on the map that you see at the start of every episode, including this one. And when I put it up, you'll recognize it. I've used that in previous episodes to use the large green arrow to point to the captain's house that I selected for that particular episode. Sometimes, in fact a lot of times, captains lived in more than one house, and so I selected for filming the one that I thought was the most significant during his life while in Bayview. Now, the criteria to be a lake captain, a Bayview lake captain, is that you had to actually live in Bayview while you captain a ship. Otherwise, if you live in Bayview and you weren't captaining a ship and you used to be a lake captain, you're a former lake captain, but not a Bayview lake captain. So you had to captain a ship while you lived here. And that's what all of these houses you'll see signify. In order to make that map, the captain that lived in that house had to captain a ship while he lived there. And then there were a number of different ships, like a lot of ships. And then there's, well, where did they live and when? And how did that all go about and happen and move around demographically over time? And so I'm going to talk about all that coming up in the episode here. Simon Stanhope is not going to be joining us because it's just going to be me talking while you look at the map. And so I'll break to that now and then come back at the end for a recap. So here's the map, and away we go. See you at the end.
Okay, so here we are with the map of Bayview's Lake Captain's homes from 1878 to 1968. What I'm going to do is first give you kind of a general overview on what this actually is, and then we'll get into a little more detail. So in the upper left here, I'll start with this yellow dot. Hopefully it works. Okay, and I can move it around like this. First thing we do, let's go down and look at the little key we have down here at the lower left. Okay, so you see the 71 captains, the dates of when they lived here in Bayview. They captained a total of 195 different ships, and they lived in 118 different homes. Now all of those 118 are posted in here. So if you do the math, let's see, 71 captains and 118 homes. What is going on? And the answer is that a lot of them lived in a lot of different homes. I think one captain lived in as many as 10 different homes. Many of them were renters, which gets to the salaries that they achieved as lake captains, which weren't much. Basically, they were the highest paid member of the owner's crew is probably the best way to describe it. Now, people sometimes have this visual of sea captains living in homes like out in Maine on the coast, along the cliffs of the Atlantic coast in Maine, and down in Cape Cod and Nantucket and these places, is having these, captains living in these beautiful old Victorian homes. And that certainly isn't the case here, and I don't really think it was the case out in those other places either. When you look at the captain's homes that are out there and you study the captain, you learn that in a lot of cases, but not all, but in a lot of cases, they branched out from being a captain into owning the ship initially, and then ships, as they built a shipping empire to transport the cargo across the world. And that's how they made their money, is in the cargo transport business, not as a captain. But again, that's a generalization. Certainly there were some that did. But for Great Lakes captains, I would have to say no, they didn't live in giant, magnificent, beautiful Victorian homes. They were working class people. On the upper rungs, okay, but that's really what they were. And that's what you find when you look at these homes. Now, the way after I got all the addresses together for all of them, then I got this map. It's the best one I could come up with. Some of them, let me get this yellow button here. Some up here are kind of off the map, as you can see, but that's Burrell Street, pretty much. I think there's one, maybe Clarence is in here too. But it works, I think. Here's the KK River. Over here is Lake Michigan, just to give you an orientation. Here is Oklahoma Avenue. And let's see here. Here is, go up Superior Street right here. There we go. And let's see here. I think here's Russell right here. KK. Going back up KK. And we come to Howell Avenue, I think it's right there. And here's Bay Street, on to KK and Kinnikinnick, and there's Stewart.
Now the Port of Milwaukee is up here, and that's kind of maybe where we'll start the discussion here. See, when you look at these homes, they're all built in basically the late 19th century. And not so many over here, but still some of them. But definitely where the highest concentration is, these are all 1890s homes. And the port is up here. Now Bayview is surrounded on three sides by water. Lake Michigan, the port, and then we go over and down the KK River. And so the automobile, I don't know the exact date, but I'm going to guess the mid 1920s, maybe late 20s, we started getting roads, and the automobile came into extensive use during that period. But before that, when these homes were built, there were no automobiles. Everything was transported by horse. And of course electric trolleys too. But the point being that if you crewed, captain or crew, one of these ships up in the port here, you're going to want to have a way to get there quick. And that's why these houses are up here close to the port. They could walk to their ship, or I think there were trolleys that operated in here. Some were horse drawn. I haven't studied that. I think I read that somewhere. But that would all make sense, and that's why you see this area 1 here. This is the highest concentration of Bayview Lake Captain's homes of all the areas. So here we have, for example, this area 1, there were 66 captain's homes that lived up here. These are 66 in here, and the average date, the start date that they lived in these homes is 1904. That's the average. So then you go down here, here's number 2, 3, and 4 right here. And then 5 is a summary of 2, 3, and 4. And so in this area right here, per category 5, there were 52 captains that lived right here, basically east of Russell Avenue. And this northwest area is the area that had the highest concentration of homes at 66 captains. Notice also the starting date is 10 years later, sometimes longer than 10 years. This is 16 years. So 1904, 1914, 1920. So here you go. Over time, the captains moved over here. Northwest, southeast. 52 total lived here, 66 total lived here. So this is the highest concentration up in here. These are the first homes. And these are the later homes. And then here's the area of progression. From 1904 to 1920, the captains moved south and east. Now something else that's also very interesting is, you go over here to the this key over here, we see there's sail, steam, and unknown type. So let's focus on sail. Sail was the first category, obviously, and then as equipment, as sailing, professional sailing advanced, like all of society advanced, steam came into existence. So it was sail, then it was steam, and you see that up here. Look at this. Look at these are sail. This is all sail, 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 and then the red is the steam, and the black is the unknown. Now, see all the sail that you have up in here? Now you go down here and look, just a few. Just a few. I find that fascinating. So with the early majority lake captains, there was more sailing ship captains up in here than there were down here. This is mostly steam. A fascinating development, and it matches up also with a couple. I'm going to stop the little arrow of this thing here for a second and talk. That matches up exactly this transition from number 1 down to number 5. That matches up exactly as time progresses, and as time progresses, the equipment advances. So first there was sail, then there was steam. After steam came oil. After oil came gas turbines, which basically where we are now, which are basically jet engines put into a ship, and they start up instantly. And of course with steam, then you have to boil the oil. You have to first throw the coal into the boilers. Initially it was wood, by the way, but then it was coal. Throw the coal in the boilers, heat the water, create the steam. Steam goes through the pipes, blows past the turbine blades, and turns to propeller. That took hours. Hours. Modern day today, none of which is on here. This is only steam. There's no gas turbines in here. But what we find is that steam progressed out of sail. That's what I'm saying. And that matches up with the movement. Here's steam, here's sail mostly. You got some steam too, but the most sail's up here. And then over time, sail goes away and it's all steam. I find that really, really interesting. Okay, now, remember, to be a captain, to be considered a Bayview Lake captain, you actually had to captain a ship while you lived here. Now, I did a video earlier on there were 8 sets of brothers that were all Bayview Lake captains. And they all lived pretty much across the board here. I think that most of them, I think, were up in Area 1, but there were some down in here too. Now, to my knowledge, this is the only time any of this information has not only been researched and compiled, but also plotted and analyzed. I think it's the first time. I certainly didn't see it anywhere else. And you have a lot of captains, as I mentioned before, that own different houses. The ones that I selected out of all of these, so if I say, today we're going to talk about Captain X, well, Captain X may have lived in 3 different homes. So I selected the house to film for the video based upon what I thought was the most significant event in that captain's sailing career while he lived in Bayview. That's the house that I selected. But many of them had more than that. Okay, now let's focus just right up in this area. See, this is Burrell Street, like this is Clarence, and there's one down here. I think this is Bay converting over to Becker. Becher is pronounced Becker. I learned that recently on the Facebook page, Vintage Bayview, from Lisa Schultz, who posted that information. It's pronounced Becker. Okay, so not Beecher. So it goes East Bay over to Becker. There's one here. Then this is Burrell Street. I think this is Clarence in here. And then look here. The next level over to the right, see this blue? Sail, sail, sail. These are all sail. Okay? But this group right here, I find really, really interesting. Now, why are they not over in here? And remember, sail came first, not steam. So what are they doing over here? And I think, and I haven't studied it. I may yet, although it's getting harder to do as time goes on, I promise you. So maybe some young researcher out there can take a look at it. But look at this. You got the Port of Milwaukee up here, right? So they come in off of Lake Michigan, right here, into the port, down and around. Now they could dock here and then come home this way. But I think some of them came down here like this and went down the KK River and docked here and then I think right here, Clarence Street. Clarence Street's right here and goes up this way to Burrell. So down in here, I think that there's a pretty good chance that there was a pier down in here, a docking pier, or maybe they just dropped anchor. I don't know. I don't know that the river was deep enough, but I believe that since these are all sailing ship captains, that their sailing ships have a lower draft. I mean, it's not as deep in the water as steamships were, so they could get away with sailing down the river. So instead of parking over here, walking all the way down, just go right here and then walk up the hill, Clarence Street, to your house. I think that's what happened. I'm gonna try to look at that a little bit more, but just an interesting observation that I had when I was putting this all together. Now right over in here, Lina Street, right, I think it's right here. Right here I guess it is. There's a house in Lina Street that housed the most captains of any other house over time than any other house in all of Bayview, right up here. And again, makes sense, it's the highest concentration area, but one house over its lifetime housed more captains than any other, and that's what this one is. Another point of interest, you go down here, see that black star right there? And here it is on the key. Bayview's best captain. That's coming up. I'm not going to tell you who that is, but when you hear about it, you'll no doubt agree with me that that is Bayview's best captain, and we will cover that in a future episode. So that's how they all plot out. I think it's fascinating when you take a step back with this bird's eye view and you see how it all mashed up. These houses over here, you know, are newer, except for some of them. There's some of the old rolling mill houses, of course, I think right in here. But overall, when you look at the dates of the captains moved in here, they were over here in '04. But over here, they don't come here. I think these houses are generally newer than the ones over here. I haven't studied that for sure, but that's kind of what it looks like. So that's it. I really don't have much more than that, but I thought you would enjoy this walkthrough because I show this map at the start of each episode, and you might not grasp exactly what it all means. And so I thought I'd spend a moment showing it to you. And as I mentioned before, we're going to talk about other parts of demographics of all of the lake captains in separate videos that are coming up on the channel that I'll intersperse among the captains. So with that, I will close off this map discussion and go back to the closing.
Pretty interesting, eh? The progression over time, I was really amazed by, actually. You know how it went from the northwest part of Bayview, which is over here, all the way down by the lake over time. That all came about as I did the research and I compiled it. You know, you kind of have an inkling as you're going along, but for that large amount of data points, it really didn't make itself known until I plotted every one of them. And then you step back and you go, hey, wow. So I thought that was quite interesting, along with all the other information. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time, and until then, hats off to our Bayview Lake captains. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. This photograph isn't about Bayview or its lake captains, but it's from the same era of Great Lakes maritime history. We thought we'd close with it for enjoyment, as it captures the spirit of the era. If you'd like to read more details, as well as the sources for the information contained in today's video, you can find these and more in the book Bayview, Town of Lake Captains, for sale now by individual volumes on both Amazon.com and HenschelHouseBooks.com. All proceeds from book sales go to support various maritime history projects related to Bayview's Lake Captains. One of these is a plaque and marker with the captains' names and addresses on it, as part of the creation of the Bayview Lake Captains Historic District, which will be the first of its kind in America. If you would like to contribute to support these projects, to include this and other markers honouring Bayview's Lake Captains, with 100% of all donations and contributions in all forms going to support them, please consider contributing to us through the listings found on our website under the Contribute button. Note, we are not a 501c3, so contributions are not tax-deductible. If, for some reason, we are unable to secure these markers, then all funds donated to this site will be given as a cash donation to the museum ship SS City of Milwaukee in Manistee, Michigan. That is the only surviving intact ship, once captained by at least 2, and likely 3, different Bayview Lake Captains. Finally, we also have free self-guided walking tours of Bayview's 71 Lake Captains' homes, using only your phone. It's simple and easy. Just go to the website shown here, find the item on the menu bar at the upper left named Free Self-Guided Walking Tours, and then scroll down to find the map with instructions. Zoom in by street. When you find a captain's house you're interested in, click on it and details appear on the right, along with a link to the YouTube episode from this channel that provides the biography of the captain that lived there. You can also read about his sailing adventures while living in that particular house by going to the website menu item, Sailing Adventures, and looking up his name. It's free, fun, and available any time you're out walking. Just bring along your phone. I'm Simon Stanhope, narrator for these episodes. Join us again soon for the next chapter of Bayview, Town of Lake Captains.